Hey everyone in the Classy Curricle Network. We are doing something very special, brand new right now. I'm about to record a podcast interview, and I thought, hey, let's make it live and do it together. And so then you can kind of be behind the scenes and kind of see what happens when I do podcast recording. So we're going to be a little informal. It's going to be fun. If you have any questions, feel free. That's kind of the perk of being in this group, is you kind of get behind the scenes and then you can ask questions as we go too. So we're going to officially get started here. So welcome, Arika, to the Classy Career Girl podcast. We are so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here as well. So it's always fun. And I love that we're doing something different. So
we are. We're going live in the Classy Career Girl Network Facebook group at the same time. So always trying something new. That's what you have to do when you're an entrepreneur, I feel like.
All the time, right? All the things.
Yeah. So we met a couple years ago. You were a guest inside of our class membership group. You were teaching us about personal branding, and I will tell you, our members loved it. We had a lot of great feedback afterward. I think it was one of the most watched guest trainings that we had.
Oh,
so I knew we had to have you back, especially since I heard that you launched a brand new book. So tell us a little bit, because I know a lot of our podcast listeners probably didn't get to watch that training. So tell us a little bit about you, your background, and about this new book.
Sure. So again, first, thank you so much for having me, and hi to everyone that is watching live or who will get this later. So I am a leadership coach, and no, I didn't graduate in leadership coaching in college or anything of that nature. I don't think that it's probably a major now, but it was definitely not an option when I was in school. But how I came to be at this point in my career is I spent 15 years in corporate, or corporate organizations. And I was someone who became a people leader and kind of had a fast track career very early. So before I was 30, I held my first vice president position. And I remember getting that promotion and kind of being like excited, but like scared to death, at the exact same time. And so as a result, I really thought about the fact that I could either sink or swim when it came to my career, and I wanted to swim. So I started to soak up everything that I could from other leaders around me. I took a lot of professional development courses, went to conferences, just did all the things to really develop myself, both as a leader, but also just as a person, as someone who always wanted to be a better version of myself. And so as a result, in 2018, I wrote my first book, and that was really my advice to millennials who were kind of navigating their adulting, life and life after college and starting out your career, things of that nature. And from there, I started speaking at conferences and doing workshops, things of that nature. I also became a certified career coach at that time. And then later on, I decided to leave my corporate career behind and focus full time on, really helping people navigate their careers, especially women. And, I feel as though navigating, your career as a woman, especially, when we think about how we're pulled in so many different directions and all of the challenges that we're faced, it can be really incredibly tough. And so that's what I'm focused on, is really helping all professionals, but specifically women, really, take control. And so my newest book is called I Can, I Will, Watch Me: How to Not Be Overlooked, Underpaid, or Undervalued, which are 3 areas I have consistently heard from women, especially, that they run into as far as challenges in their career. And so the book is essentially a roadmap to help guide you in a path where you're taking ownership of what your career looks like. So long answer, but that's how I got here.
So let's talk about those 3 areas. Let's talk about overlooked first. Like what are some tactics that you recommend so that you don't be invisible at work, and we can instead be considered for those growth opportunities that we really want?
So the number one thing I say this throughout the book, but the really key thing is having a strategy. I think so many times we're sort of drifting through our career and we look up and we're like, "Ugh, I'm not where I want to be, or I feel stuck, or why aren't I here? And so is there. And that's why having a strategy is so incredibly important. So when you're thinking about, am I being seen? Am I, making sure that I'm, visible to the right people who have control over my career direction beyond myself? Sometimes you have to just start by making a list, right? Who are those people? Sometimes we think it's just our boss. It's usually not just your boss who you need to be visible in front of. There's lots of other stakeholders who you want to make sure that you're networking with, you're connecting with. You also have to know, like, what is it that you want them to know about you? As women, we oftentimes, say, "Ugh, I don't want to brag," or "I don't want to talk about myself," or we don't share our accomplishments enough. We don't track our accomplishments enough. So you want to make sure that you're tracking them and that you're amplifying them, that you're, speaking to the right stakeholders. I learned this tip from an amazing woman named Shahara Downing, who is a communications coach. And she shared a tip that when you get, in a meeting, or, especially in Zoom, right? And everyone's kind of getting on in the beginning and they're saying, "How's the weather? How's it going?" Instead of, having that small talk banter, that's an opportunity to say something to the effect of, "I'm really proud about, this that happened last week. There was this client that we've been dealing with that's been really tough, but I just had a great conversation with them. And, now they just said that they're going to continue to work with us. Or I'm really excited about this project that I've just finished wrapping up. And, it was going this way, but we were able to really refocus and deliver the results." So make sure that you're finding time to share those sound bites of what you're doing well, and make sure that you're sharing them with the right people. And that really requires some strategy.
I love that too, because sometimes Zoom is like dead in the beginning. You don't know what to say. So if you can bring it in and share
Yeah.
that thing that you helped with too. And I know back because I came from corporate too. I had a history in corporate, and I know one of the times I was up for a promotion, I thought I had been doing a great job and I was going to get promoted, but my boss didn't know, right? Because I wasn't doing the things that you're talking about. So, how do you, let's like moving into the underpaid section, like, how do you proactively position yourself for raises and promotions so you don't get overlooked?
So again, strategy, right? Oftentimes, I tell people we spend more time planning a vacation than we do planning our careers, right? We know all
Mhm.
the details. We're looking at the hotels, all of that kind of stuff. But when it comes to our career, we're like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, or I'll think about it later. So even when it comes to things such as a promotion or a salary increase, you want to make sure that you know exactly what it is that you want. Saying, "I want to be promoted," or saying, "I want to make more money," that's very vague. It's very vague, right? So you have to get very specific. If you want to make more money, or if you want an increase, what is that based upon? Is it based upon what the market is, paying people at your same level, at your same type of expertise and experience? Is it what they're paying within your company, or do you need to look outside of your company to order to make more money? But you have to gather all of that data and facts and have that at the ready. And you also have to also make sure that you can connect what you're doing to impact and results. One of the questions I often ask people, especially if they're looking to be on the promotion or pay raise track, is, okay, what's important to your boss, or what's important to your organization? Can you connect the dots between what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to what is important to them? Because when you go in and you want to have that conversation about getting a raise or a promotion, those are the things that you want to be leading with, right? You have to really make the case. And I always tell, especially women, really remove the idea of asking for a raise or asking for a promotion from your mindset. You want to go in and negotiate a raise that's aligned with where you should be based upon the type of work you're doing, your level of experience, your expertise. Same thing with a promotion. You're negotiating taking on a higher level of responsibility or taking on a different title based upon this. But so you have to have you have to know what that is in order to make the case. But there's nothing worse than when you see people. It used to happen to me when I used to manage people. Someone just comes at you and they're like, I think I should, get a 10% raise, or I think I should be at this level. And you're like, okay, well, give me some justification. Show me, why all of a sudden, you feel as though you're not on par with where you should be. And if you don't have that, it's hard to take the person seriously. And the last thing I'll say is that when you do go into that negotiation conversation, either about a pay raise or about a promotion, most of the time, you're probably not going to get a boss that says, you are absolutely right. Let me get on the phone with HR right now and take care of it, right? Most of the time, that's probably the first conversation that's going to need to happen in order to, either get to that next phase. But make sure you just leave that conversation with a commitment for what happens next. If they say, give me some time to think about it, say, okay, how about, can I check back in 3 weeks and we revisit this conversation? Or if they say it's not a good time, or I'm not sure that, you really are there yet, say, all right, well, let's really, get clear on what I need to do to get there. And then can we regroup in 90 days to evaluate my, my progress from there? So at least leave that conversation with some level of commitment, either for a further conversation or action or whatever it is. To me, that's your end goal when you're going in to have a conversation about a raise or a promotion.
And set the date on the calendar too. Like you could
Yes.
book a
Get, no,
meeting
yeah.
too.
Get the calendar date set before. It's
Yeah.
like a sales meeting, right? Like you don't leave the sales meeting without the next meeting's schedule.
Yeah. I think, and when this happened to me, it was like on a Friday, and I spent all weekend going through all the stuff I had done over the last year and like putting it into a presentation, and then following up with my boss on Monday. And I did get the promotion, but I really wish that I would have done it all year round. Like it was
Yeah.
a stressful weekend, but I was determined.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that work you probably did afterwards is the work you probably should have been doing
Yes.
before. And then to your point, sometimes we only talk about our impact, our results during performance review times. No, that's why I talk about it all the time. I always tell people, you are not LeBron James, right? Nobody is tracking your stats. Right? We have to track and share our own stats all the time. So we might think, of course, my boss knows I'm doing this, or of course, this is happening. No, why would they? They have their own priorities. They have their own raises and promotions that they're also thinking about. So unless you're consistently giving them those sound bites, that's the only way that it's going to stay top of mind, so that when you do go, it's going to make sense. You know what? You're right, Anna. Absolutely. We should be thinking about you for this position. You've been, talking, sharing all year how much, great work you and your team have been doing, versus that being the first time that they're hearing about some of the things that you've been doing.
Exactly. So let's move into the third part of your books again, then the undervalued part, because I know burnout is something I'm seeing a lot lately, of people are really burnt out, feeling this like disrespected, undervalued. So how can we make sure, like, what mistakes do you see made? And how can you make sure that you feel valued at work?
So the number one thing is that I think you have to be clear on your own value, right?
Mhm.
And so again, that's where the work goes in, that self-assessment, that self-awareness of, what are your strengths? What are you bringing to the table? And so that way you can make sure that you're leading with those. One of the things that I see happen, especially when it comes to women in particular who are burnt out, it's because they are oftentimes spinning their wheels and they're so focused on having their heads down, working on things that really are not connected to their strengths, connected to their passion, connected to the work that they really want to be doing. And so when you become more clear on where you want to go and your brand and all of those things, then you can really start to also diplomatically say no to things that perhaps are not serving you well and really aren't going to allow you to showcase your value. So we know, especially in the workforce, that women often get tagged with doing sort of those less glamorous, assignments, taking notes, ordering, the lunch
Lunch.
for, things of that nature, right? And those are not, I mean, unfortunately, or fortunately, at the end of the day, those are not going to be things that are going to get you to the next level. They'll make you well liked, perhaps, but those are the things that when you're clear on your own value, you can start to decline and really start to push back on so you can make room for the areas that are going to play into your own strengths.
I love that. I think that's so helpful. Knowing your value first is something that is really, really important.
Well, and it's because how can you expect others? Again,
Right.
I think especially as women, we are taught to kind of keep our heads down, work really hard, and people will see your results. That's definitely not the
No,
not, sort of the thought that I subscribe to, nor have I seen be successful in many organizations. So you have to make sure that when you spend some time, again, when I spoke to your group before, that's where the personal branding comes into place. Getting clear on your brand, what you want to be known for, how, you're going to position yourself, all of those things. So that's
that's
really important.
definitely awesome. So we're gonna move into our classy career girl lightning round, which is
Okay.
questions we ask all of our guests here at the end of our podcast. But what makes this podcast different is we really want to help our listeners become happy, successful, and balanced with class, skill, and style. And so I'm going to ask you these questions that you don't have to have like long, drawn out responses, but I think they're really going to help our audience listeners today. So, number one, what is your best financial advice?
Oh wow. Know your numbers. I think sometimes we don't want to know how much in depth debt we are, sorry. Or what the, APR is on our credit cards, or what the balance is, or all of those things. Everyone has a different tracking system, but do it. No, pull the, cover up from the car and dig into it, and know your numbers. Don't run up your credit score, all those things.
Definitely. This is so hard because like I want to jump in but I'm just gonna focus.
Yeah, I know.
We're
That's
gonna
our part
you
about
just you
lightning
in,
rod.
right?
Yeah.
But I totally agree. I'll just say that. I totally agree. What is your experience with debt and what would be your tips for someone right now who's just really struggling with debt, has a lot of debt right now?
So I went to law school, so I owed a lot of money for loans and things of that nature. So I understand debt. The number one tip I would give is to, again, when you know your numbers, then you can start to pay off things that are, especially with higher, interest rates, things of that nature. But the other piece too, I think, is to make sure that from your salary or whatever it is that you are allocating from the point it comes into your account immediately something that will start to pay it down. So,
What do you wish that you would have known when you started on your road to career success?
oh wow, no one cares about your career as much as you.
Quote Erica Pierce. I love it. That'll be your social media quote.
Yeah.
How do you stay balanced?
uh Morning routine, incredibly important. Meditate almost every single morning for at least 10 minutes. Journaling, I do morning pages, and working out. So starting off the day strong and with kind of a balanced mindset.
Definitely, me too. How do you find happiness and fulfillment in your own work? Like you help all these other women. How do you make sure that you're happy and fulfilled yourself?
Every time I hear from someone who sends me a message and says, thank you, I read this, or I heard you here, or just, this really has helped me in my career, or have a think about things differently. That's more than, any amount of money could pay me in terms of really feeling purposeful. So that's what keeps me going.
And that kind of the next question too is like, what brings you the most joy in your career or business? So probably like your client successes.
Yeah, knowing that you are helping people really, live to their higher level. So, especially when it comes to women in our careers, because it's hard and it's different for us. It just
Mhm.
is.
What does having class mean to you in your personal life or at work?
I think that it means that you have that certain level of gravitas, right? Just kind of have that little spark that makes people kind of gravitate to you and want to be around you. So,
So important in your career
yeah.
too. I love that.
Yes,
And
yes,
we
you're
have that on our resumes and during our
yeah.
interviews. I love that. And when we negotiate. Um, how do you describe your work style?
It is a gosh, it's a organized chaos, but I get it done. I get it done. So I'm a go hard or go home somewhat person. But it doesn't always make sense in terms of my my scheduled and my organization skills.
And last question, what's the most important skill to have in your career or business?
I think your people skills, I think in your communication skills. I think sometimes we think, oh, if you're not extroverted or if you're not, big talker, big personality, it's hard to, sort of get to a certain level. And I simply I don't think that that's true. I think it really just comes down to your ability to connect with other people and to communicate effectively. And everyone has an opportunity to do that. Sometimes some people have to just work a little bit harder at it.
So good, you did it.
Ah.
Amazing. I love it. So tell everyone where they can learn more about you and your new book that's out right now.
Sure. So my website is erikapierce.com. Erica is spelled Arika, so a little bit different. And my book, I Will Watch Me, is available on my website if you want a autographed copy, or it's available on Amazon. I think it's still on sale on Amazon. So if I were you, I would actually go to Amazon and get it versus buying it from my website. It's much cheaper right now. But yes, it's available on Amazon as well, so you can get it
Awesome.
there.
So what would be like your main takeaway that you want readers of your book to walk away with? I'm sure you thought about that while you were writing it.
That ambition alone is not enough to advance your career. You must also be strategic, and the book is all about creating that strategy, and it's written to be a roadmap to get you to that next level.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much, Erica, for sharing this and good
Thank
luck with your book
you.
launch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.